call this meeting to order.
This meeting is being recorded and/or transcribed.
Thank you, Julian. So good morning, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order for the West Haven Subcommittee of the MARB. It is September 22nd, 10:04 to begin this meeting. And I'm Kimberly Kennison. I am designee for Secretary McCaw, and with me as a co-chair is Christine Shaw, who is the designee for Treasurer Wooden. And we do have a quorum. And the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes, and I'm wondering if I could get a motion.
So moved, Bob White.
Thank you, Bob.
And Christine Shaw, second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Julian, can I ask you to please do a roll call and have the members state whether they're in favor, opposed, or abstained in their vote?
Mr. White?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
I'm going to abstain.
Mr. Felsigno?
Yeah.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Kennison?
Yes.
And any subcommittee members that joined on that I didn't mention? Okay, thank you. That's everybody.
Okay, so the minutes have been approved. The next item on the agenda is to review and possible action on the Ask Me Local 681 tentative agreement. And this agreement, Julian has provided us with a summary. And Julian, I'm going to ask you to give a quick highlight, and then if you'd like, and or we can turn it over to the city.
Just as an intro, so you have the summary document from the city's labor attorney. You have the fiscal analysis provided by the finance director, and the city also provided some comparables yesterday that were distributed yesterday afternoon. This is a contract that covers just under 100 employees. It's made up of public works employees and non-managerial town hall workers. The contract expired June of 2017, and this tentative agreement was ratified by the union and the city council both earlier this month. Based on the statutory timeline, the MARB would have until October 15th to take action if it chooses. And you'll see the major provisions are outlined in a couple of places in both the cover memo and the memo from the labor attorney, but it basically provides a 0% wage increase in the first 4 years, a 1% in FY22, and a 2% in FY23. In the one memo, we noted that leading up to this contract in the previous agreement, it provided 2% per year basically throughout that contract. 1 year was subject to a reopener. This group moved over to the state partnership in January, so the agreement codifies that change. Previously, and I don't know if the city has updated projections on this, but previously the transition to the partnership was projected to save the city approximately $200,000 per year. The agreement also increases the employee contribution to health insurance, bumping up by 1 percentage point in FY22 and another percentage point in FY23. And you'll see the fiscal analysis from the city. It provides a calculation of the additional cost of the wage increase, the savings resulting from the health insurance premium cost share, In addition to those projections, you'll see that the fiscal analysis also shows the impact of the agreement as it compares to the assumptions in the 5-year plan. So it's providing the information sort of through two lenses there. The projections do go out beyond the life of the contract by a couple of years to coincide with the duration of the 5-year plan. And some of the other provisions, it eliminates the retiree health benefit for new hires. It eliminates sick leave payouts at retirement for new hires, and there's a handful of other changes, including a few that address overtime. So that's very high level summary, and turn it to the city to fill in any other details and comments.
You are no longer muted.
The agreement on behalf of the city of West Haven. Just to follow up on those comments, I think it's a contract that certainly was negotiated in good faith between the parties. I think it's very favorable to the city of West Haven. It's very unusual to see a collective bargaining agreement with 4 years of wage freezes, and then a 1 and a 2 in year 5 and 6. As was noted, the partnership plan, the city moved to the partnership plan, and for this contract, it's about a $200,000 savings. I think the retiree medical, eliminating retiree medical for new hires is very positive. Also, eliminating the accrued sick leave payout for new hires is positive. Other ancillary issues, with regard to overtime, in the past, all paid time off counted towards the 40 hours worked in a work week. We were able to remove sick time from that calculation, which I think is very, very positive and very important, because individuals, if they want, can play around with sick leave and still hit the 40 hours for the purpose of time and a half. Other items that were tightened up, the grievance procedure, we put in a clause regarding mitigation of damages, which I think is very positive and very important. And what that means is if someone's terminated, they can't sit on their hands and wait for an arbitration hearing and an arbitration decision that might not happen for a period of some time, sometimes up to a year. Rather, they have to go out and try to mitigate their damages by finding other employment. Another item that was not in the contract was indemnification language regarding dues deductions. Since the city is deducting dues, the union normally would indemnify the city or the employer for doing that. That was not in the prior contracts, so that, I believe, is positive. And then there's a clause that was in there on non-discrimination. And I've seen this clause cause municipalities a great deal of angst and a great deal of money. For example, there's one municipality in particular, there was a termination. The case went to the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. The commission found that there was discrimination and reinstated, the award was to reinstate the employee. Simultaneously, the case went to the Board of Mediation and Arbitration on a grievance that was filed alleging discrimination, and the Board of Mediation found that there was no discrimination. So you had 2 conflicting decisions. The city or the town, in this case, ended up litigating that for years as to, what decision should we follow. And basically, we're not preventing, which we would never do, someone from filing a grievance alleging discrimination. If someone feels that they're being discriminated against, we want to know. We want a grievance to be filed. But to the extent that that can't be resolved during that process, then the case should go to the appropriate forum. And that forum in Connecticut is the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. So I think that language is positive, even though there isn't a high likelihood that that situation would come up. It has come up in other towns that I represent, and it creates some problems. So that's essentially the highlights of that agreement. Yesterday, I put together some comps based upon population grouping of other municipalities, and I think if you look at that, this agreement is very favorable compared to what is happening in the marketplace. And with regard to, certainly with regard to the wage increases, the premium share is certainly in range with the other communities that are listed. We have eliminated, as I said before, retiree health for new hires. Many municipalities still cover that. The same thing with accrued sick time upon the payout upon retirement. So overall, I think it's an excellent agreement. The union certainly negotiated in good faith and recognized the fiscal constraints facing the city of West Haven. And, we reached, in my opinion, a very good agreement.
This is Tom Hamilton. I have just a couple of questions, if I might.
Yes. Go ahead, Tom. Thank you.
Sure. I looked at the contract, and I agree. 4% or 0% wage increases over 4 years is certainly favorable. What I wasn't sure of is whether or not there are any step increases. I couldn't find anywhere in the contract, and it looks like there maybe are no steps, but I'm a little surprised at that and just want to get confirmation if, in fact, there are any steps in the contract, and if so, what the cost of those step increases might be.
If anything, Mr. Hamilton, this is Frank, there would be possibly 3 individuals, and they would all be new hires. Mm-hmm. Everyone else within 681 is in their top step.
Okay.
At least that I could see.
So there are steps then, is that right? Somewhere in there are steps in the contract, but they're essentially insignificant because everyone's already on top step?
Correct.
Okay. And the retiree health insurance, I think it's certainly, appropriate, and I was happy to see that you've eliminated that benefit for new hires. For existing employees, can you describe what the current benefit is and whether or not there is any premium cost share to retirees or any active employee contribution toward retiree health insurance, or is it all picked up entirely by the city?
You want me to get this?
Frank, do you want to address that?
I'll address it, Bill. Lee Tiernan, City of West Haven. So currently, retired employees who have enough years in and are over a certain age, that would be current prior to this contract, would receive a retirement benefit, and what they would pay is the same thing employees would pay. So they would have the same premium cost share, and that cost share would be adjusted as employees' cost share is adjusted over time. There was a time, there was a time when employees had free health care, but that's long gone. That went away.
Okay, so they're paying the same as actives, and as the active premium cost share increases, their cost share will increase even after they've retired. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and they're in the state partnership plan, I guess, or is it the Medicare? What plan is it that they're in these days?
Well, I just got my Anthem card, which says we're in the state partnership plan, so I think we are. I just got it 2 days ago.
And right. So is it the Medicare Advantage plan that through the state partnership plan for someone who's over age 65?
Is Beth? Are you on the call? Beth?
Yes. No, over age 65, it's Medicare A, B, and the F plan.
Okay, so that's still that's the old plan that you used to have before you moved to the state partnership plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, I mean, I guess it would be nice to see that moved. I know there were some issues in accomplishing that. I remember from last year the discussion. Mike, Malone was pretty did quite a bit of research on that. So I think that's it for my questions. I'm satisfied the contract is appropriate, and all my questions are answered.
Thank you. Any other members?
Bob White.
Yes, Bob.
I agree. I'm satisfied. The one question I have, I guess, is why 3 years with no contract?
I can answer that. This is Bill Ryan. So why 3 years with no contract? Because we went into negotiations and we were very clear that there were going to be no wage increases, which makes it very difficult to negotiate quickly. We also, the main issue, aside from the wages, Bob, was the health insurance. And at the time, the city was proposing a high deductible health plan, I believe with a buy-up to the PPO. We actually reached a tentative agreement, and it went back to 681, and the agreement was turned down initially. After the city decided to go to the partnership plan, where they're saving money by doing that, the union was able to meet. They weren't able to meet quickly because of the pandemic, but eventually they were able to meet with their bargaining representatives, and that's when they voted in favor of this agreement. So, those are the reasons, in a nutshell, as to why no agreement in the first 3 years.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Are we prepared for a motion on this contract to approve?
Second.
Stephen, are you the motion?
Yes, I made a motion to approve, and I'd also like to just say that I think this is exceptionally favorable for the town, and I think it's a welcome contract.
Can I get a second? If I did get one, I apologize. I did not hear.
I'll second that. Tom Hamilton seconds.
Thank you, Tom. Any other discussion? Julian, can I have a roll call, please, on this action?
Yes. Mr. White.
Yes.
Mr. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mr. Felsigno.
Yes.
Ms. Shaw.
Yes.
Ms. Kennison.
Yes.
Are there any members I missed? That's everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. The motion's approved. On to the next agenda item, which is the discussion on the fire district. I do not know if I have Mike Walsh with me. I know he is in the mountains, but I did get a message. Are you with us, Mike?
Yes, I am, Kim. If you can give me a sound check, I should be okay.
You sound fine and clear, so thank you.
Excellent. All right.
If you could just give us an overview, please, on the great works that we have had with the fire districts and meeting with them and their commissioners. And I know that this has been requested. I will talk about the status of the actuary after we get the overview first, and because I know I want to be cognitive of your location and not being able to transmit to us.
All right, thank you. Members of the committee, good morning. It's Mike Walsh, Office of Policy and Management, and members of West Haven Fire Department, also good morning. The document you have in front of you was prepared by Julian, and I'll start on page 1 and specifically load in or take a look at table 1A. I just want to provide some high-level comments. We see a number of trends here. For instance, in table 1A, we have 11.6, almost 11.7 million of salaries for the 3 West Haven districts. And Julian was formerly the budget director in the town of Manchester, and I was the finance director in the town of East Hartford. Those are also 2 good comparable towns that we were able to fairly easily get an apples-to-apples comparison with West Haven. The salaries of West Haven at 11.6, almost 11.7, compare favorably to Manchester at 10.6 and favorably to East Hartford 13.4. More importantly, if I can move you down to table 1B, also sticking with the salaries line, you'll see that is simply a metric where we've taken the salaries from table 1A, divided it by the firefighters, which are deeper into the analysis.
You've been muted. To unmute yourself, press star.
It is
6.
the way you said, which is
Haven.
primarily that.
And when I said compares favorably, it was really on a per firefighter basis that I wanted to focus in on. Manchester generally tends to have a little bit richer contract, so they're at $130,340 per firefighter, and then compared favorably to the town of East Hartford at $115,672. Where we run into striking differences are employees and retiree benefits, and I'm back up on a gross basis in table 1A of $17.9 million for all districts in West Haven, compared to $5.2 million in Manchester and just over 9. And I won't move to page 2 yet, but the same type of analysis that blows up or at a granular level provides information on employee and retiree benefits begins on page 2, and also a per firefighter calculation is on page 2. But sticking with page 1 for the moment, if we break down the gross costs in table 1A for employee and retiree benefits by firefighter, the all-district West Haven is just under $179,000. And although the statistic isn't there, sometimes we deal with, what are the cost of fringes compared to the base pay. And in West Haven's case, it would be about 153%. So 1.5 times the salaries are what the district is requiring to outlay in costs for the city of West Haven, and we'll drill down to that number in a minute. Manchester represents just under 50% when you look at the $64,467 over the $130,340 of salaries. And then in East Hartford, it's a little bit higher at 67%, the $77,757 over $115,672. So I can bring you through the other lines, but really the salaries and the employee and retiree benefits are where the discussion needs to occur. With that said, if we can move to page 2, you will start to see where the costs are coming in from. So also It actually, you also have to look on page 3. I think table 2B was at the bottom of page 2, but in fact has its own page on page 3. So I won't go into much information on page 2 because the numbers speak for themselves. To provide health insurance for actives and retirees, it's just under 6.6 million, compared to Manchester at 2.7 million and East Hartford at 2.9 million. I think what you're seeing there are some of the contracts, one of which the board recommended approval. The contracts are starting to get in line, but there are grandfathered individuals, specifically on the retiree side, that will require this type of funding for, I estimate, 20 to 30 years moving into the future. Pension is also the same story. We're able to break out, in some cases we extrapolated it, but in most cases we have a normal cost for the defined benefit pension of about $1.7 million, and then the defined benefit past service cost is $8.4 million. That compares to Manchester, who does not have a defined benefit plan for their firefighters. They're in fact under MERS, whereas East Hartford does have a defined benefit plan, and the normal cost of that is just under $1 million, and past service cost is $5 million. So you quickly get the idea that some of the contracts that existed in the past, where the community will and will continue for the next 20 to 30 years pay off legacy benefits, is what's driving the spike in the costs.
Mike, I've got a question. This is Tom Hamilton. Do you know what the active firefighters in each of these districts are paying in terms of the amount into the pension fund as a percentage of payroll for active employee contributions?
The chiefs can probably better address that. At one point in time, it was as low as 6, Tom, when I did this analysis a couple of years ago. I think that may have changed, and they're somewhere up in the neighborhood of 8 and 9. Can Frank or the chiefs verify that for me, please?
Good morning, Chief Scaffarello.
You are no longer muted.
All of our employees are on the HSA, and they're currently paying 11%, I believe, at this time.
Okay, that sounds to me like you're just talking about health insurance. I was actually asking about the pension plan and what the employee pension plan contribution was.
So the 6 members that are under the defined benefit plan pay 8.5%.
Okay.
And the other 28 members are under MERS, and they pay. I think the state just raised it to 8%, something like that, 7 or 8%. I'm not sure. They just changed it in July.
So
and we're
MERS ones are set by the state. Is that correct? The contribution is set by the state for the employees.
Yes, correct. Is set by state law, and the districts is I believe it's 22%.
But you said 8.5% on the defined benefit plan for West Shore. Okay. I mean, that's the killer here. Really, is that past service cost on the pension plan is really way out of whack. But
yeah, and Tom, they are taking steps as the contracts open to move that up for the actives. A lot of what's here, though, are people, that are deep into their careers or, in fact, retired. So yeah, there was, over the last 20 or 30 years, there was probably a missed opportunity to recapture some of that. And then it's also exacerbated to a degree because there isn't a whole lot of money in any of the individual pension trust funds. There's several million. They were, the funding was certainly under 20%, and Kim will talk about that when the pension and OPEB valuations will be done. But the discount rates on these plans do not reflect any large amount of assets in the trust, which would also help the community offset some of the cost as much as 40% if there was an active investment strategy.
Right.
So just if I could finish with the employee contributions to pension. All new hires for both the Center District and the West Shore District are in that state MERS plan. And also on the medical, I just wanted to also let you know that they pay 50% of their deductible. So the deductible for a family is $4,000. The employee pays $2,000, along with the 11% copay. And everybody that gets hired since '07 has been both in the HSA plan and the MRF. And the 6 remaining members of the defined benefit, we had a preliminary actuary on the pension, and the current amount of money that we put in will carry us to 2046. So if anybody else retires, the payments to the pension plan wouldn't change. If that clears anything up for you. Any other questions for me?
Not right now.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand this table. Table 1A. The per capita expenditure for West Haven is slightly less than twice as much as the town of Manchester, and $119 more than the town of East Haven, which are like-size communities. Am I just reading this table correctly?
No, you are. I think you're looking at the per capita expenditures. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm reading it correctly, right?
You are.
That just seems alarming to me.
And keep in mind, a lot of this, Stephen, is because of the legacy plans that were in play.
I understand that this is where we're at this particular moment in time.
Correct.
But obviously, we're trying to somehow mitigate this.
Correct, and that's the whole reason for bringing the fire districts forward, asking them and building a collaborative relationship so that we can help steer them, so that this way, they have made progress in starting to put money into their budget towards these benefits and the trusts that haven't happened as much in the past. And I think it's alarming. It looks very alarming, but I think that it is helpful to, one, recognize that we can't change the past, but we definitely need to make sure that we keep our eye on the future.
Well, I agree with you. Going forward, though, I think and I know we've spoken about this before, but I think the way we handle so many other towns have made much more money on their retirement benefits in the market than some of the couple of the districts in West Haven. I think that's something that has to be looked at a little bit more intensely. Because I remember there was one that did well and one that didn't do so well. So I think there's got to be some collaboration so that all 3 districts maybe have the same financial investment goals.
Yeah, and we're going to touch upon that in an upcoming agenda item number 4C.
Sorry if I jumped ahead.
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. I would rather you bring it up than we might have forgot about it.
Kim, this is Mike again. Just to frame it for everybody, and I always view, whether we're talking about OPEB or pensions, I always view it as a 3-legged stool. And one of the legs are contributions from the community, which are now occurring, and they're now occurring in, a somewhat larger rate than they were in the past. A second leg of the stool is contributions from the employee, and for many years, the legacy contracts provided very generous benefits, and I'm talking about healthcare now, to retiree spouses, and there wasn't much, or if there was a contribution, it was capped. So in some ways, that was, a hindrance to where we are now. And then the third leg of the stool are earnings from the market. And I think if we go back to either the audit report or the ESCI report, that each of the fire districts does have a pension trust, but they really don't, contribute sizable amounts so that that they enjoy the benefit of the investment earnings. So in some ways, again, over the past 20 or 30 years, we had generous benefits. We had low to no premium cost sharing. We didn't have sufficient contributions into the plan to build up an asset base to enjoy kind of the fruits of investment. And all of that is starting to get changed now. But again, what you see in terms of legacy benefits on the employee and retiree benefits line is a number that will be stubbornly large for at least a couple of decades.
Any questions, or Julian, do you have anything you want to add to the commentary? Since you are definitely a heavy lift in pulling this data together for us, working hard with a lot of efforts and pulling this number for a really good presentation today.
No, I think everybody zeroed in on what needed, where the attention should be, which is on the retiree benefit piece. That's what's driving the numbers.
This is Bob White. A quick question, and I guess this is just sort of a jog my memory. Is at the last MARB meeting, I think we rejected the Allentown Fire Department contract. In particular, to ask them to consider more with regard to the retiree contributions. Is that discussion ongoing? I'm a little uncomfortable just living with the notion that, we weren't paying attention for the last 20 years, and this is going to take 20 or 30 years to figure out, and taxes are going to continue to go up. In the broader picture, when we looked at West Haven, their tax burden, town board of ed is up there, but it's kind of competitive. But when you put the fire departments in, it gets pretty high, maybe to the point where it's not sustainable. So I would like to keep this as an agenda item to see what can be done. Is there any way to reduce OPEB contributions or promises? I don't know what it may be, but I am very uncomfortable with just saying it'll take care of itself over 20 or 30 years with increased tax contributions. Maybe there's not another alternative, but I'm not there yet.
Understand and appreciate that.
Good morning, all, and I just want to join in commending the OPM team, Julian and Mike, for this presentation. It's very helpful. One of the discussions we've had as a subcommittee in the past is, whether there could be, this relates to the investment side of these plans, and whether there could be some opportunities to consolidate the investment of the assets. I'm just curious to know where that stands. And if there, well, first I'll take that an answer to that question before I offer a follow-up. But I really am curious to know what's going on the investment side.
So Christine, that again is part of our conversation under agenda item number 4C when we move to that. But if we are ready to move to that, I am okay with that. Unless somebody else has some additional questions. So it has to do with the tri-district MOU. And so it is one of the agenda items within that tri-district MOU. But does anybody else have any questions about the table? Christine, do you, before we move on to that?
No other questions about the table.
Anybody else, or we will move on to the next part of it? Okay, then let's talk about the tri-district MOU and get an update. So the chiefs have shared, but it has not been distributed to the MAR, but they have verbally made us aware that they have a draft tri-district MOU that has been created that they're negotiating. And within that, does any of the chiefs want to speak about that MOU at a high level of what's included in that plan? I know there was a recommendation that came from Mike Walsh's report when he did the original fire district report and the fire study. And in that report, it was to create a tri-district MOU, which that is underway, but we're not sure when that is. When is that plan to be finalized? Chief or commissioners?
Kim, it's Chief O'Brien. Yeah, we were hoping to, all three districts were hoping to approve that in September, but we had, when the chairs brought it back to their boards, a couple board members wanted clarification, and you know, we had some rewording to do. I believe we have that straightened out, and all three districts have it to read. Two of the three have agreed to push it forward in the October meeting. In the third district, the commissioners are going over it, and we expect to hear back from them any day now. And I don't foresee them having a problem, but we're waiting to hear from them.
Okay. And so does the MOA include some of the recommendations as was disclosed within the fire district fire study?
Hey, Kim, this is Mike. Let me jump in there, and I'll set the stage. I'll set the stage in case either one of the chiefs or commissioners want to talk about it. The report, there are a variety of opportunities for each of the districts, and we're respective of their individual organizations as freestanding fire districts. I want to say that leading into the conversation because, you know, they have, you know, in some cases at least a 3-member board that operates the fire districts. And going back to the ESCI study, we had really very few to no complaints about the delivery of fire service, the safety of it, how quickly they got to fires, and so forth. What we did we did spend a lot of time doing was looking at things like consistency, from how they produce their budgets on a consistent basis to how they issue their audit reports. In some cases, there's separate accountants, outside auditing firms that do their reporting, so it comes out a little bit different. Up until recently, they had different actuaries doing their pension and OPEB analysis. They had 3 different investment management firms, 3 different asset allocation strategies, and that's both on the pension and the OPEB side. So we saw an opportunity to make a positive recommendation where they could maintain their own autonomy, by sending one member of each individual board to this tri-district panel in the hopes of getting some consistency around what I call things at a granular level, like the chart of accounts, the asset allocations, who custodies the money, things like that. Now, it's going to be completely, I have read the tri-district MOU, and it will do all of those things, but what will need to happen is the 3 individual fire districts will have to embrace it and move the items forward. So I guess I just wanted to cover the background that, why we looked at these things, what the solution is, and now really it is at the feet, so to speak, of the individual 3 fire districts to embrace it and run with it. And I can't speak to that, and that's where I'll turn it over to the chief to fill in any of the blanks.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think you well said. We're working together as we have done before the study, but this gives us another opportunity administratively to work together. And I think getting the language squared away was good. And at the beginning of this process, you guys are kind enough to say, "Hey, listen, we'll give you some direction, some advice," and we appreciate the advice. And it just takes a little time, but once they do sign and they start meeting, I think it will be a win-win for everyone.
Thank you. And Christine and Stephen Falsigno, I'm wondering if that answers both of your questions on the investment side and as well as, bringing investments and strategies together.
Yeah, it does going forward, but I have to say that I agree and have always agreed with Mr. White and have the same feelings with the same comment about just to accept the past for what it is, and understanding that we are here and we have to go forward. I understand all that, but I think there's got to be a little bit more investigation into why this happened and how we got there, so that we can prevent it going forward. And I think the people of West Haven are probably going to be asking that same question, and I think that we and they deserve some sort of answer to that. So I agree with Mr. White, and I also agree with and I thank everybody on the call that fielded that question, because going forward, it does sound like we have a plan that makes sense. So, which is great. So, but again, I do want to just echo the comment of Mr. White.
I understand.
I would just
go ahead, Christine.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You're fine.
So I would echo the sentiments already expressed on this, and just note that it is important to understand how we got to where we are. I think there is, with respect to the extraordinary burden of past unfunded liabilities, and how the approach to negotiating benefits and other early retirement incentives, there's a new day when it comes to negotiations, and I think West Haven has clearly reflected that, as we've seen from the other contracts that have been put forth. But I would say that from the experiences that we can draw from the state's plans, largest pension plans, it's very, very hard to invest one's way out of such significant past liabilities. But it is important to think creatively about ways in which the asset allocation strategy can be modified in a way that really does, try to take advantage of economies of scale and tries to have a balanced approach for a long-term strategy. I mean, I think that there's no question that given what has been presented, that these are not short-term fixes, or these problems are not amenable to short-term fixes. But again, I look forward to the continued conversations that the districts will have around ways in which they can minimize some of the costs, take advantage of different types of investment opportunities without taking on undue risk, because you just can't get out of it anytime soon. So thank you for the work that's been done thus far, and we'll continue to hear of your progress.
Thank you, Christine. That's helpful. Any other questions or comments on the tri-district agreement or the benchmarking? So the next, since we glossed over it, is Chief. I did hear that I think that we're going to expect actuary reports. I think Chief Scaffarella let us know that you have received your pension report, or you're going to receive it very soon.
Hi, Kim. Chief Scaffarella. I have my pension actuary.
Okay.
I'll be happy to send it to you if you'd like, via email or mail. How would you like it?
You can email it. You can email it to me and Julian, if you don't mind, and Mike too. And then this way we can take a look at it. And do you know when you expect to get the OPEB report?
I don't. I've talked to Milliman. When we think we have enough information sent over, they call for something else. So I think the OPEB report is in its infancy of being completed, and I would not expect that till at least the end of October.
Okay.
But when I get it, I'll send it to you three, just like this pension one.
Okay. Chief O'Brien, do you have a time period from Milliman of when you're going to get your pension report?
Yeah, we've been in contact with them, and we were hoping to have it at the end of September, by the end of September. But as Chief Scaffarella just stated, ironically, when we call for an update, they ask for additional information. So they're saying a couple of weeks, but I'll be a little more generous here. I expect it, as Chief said. I hope no later than the end of October, hopefully sooner.
One thing to keep in mind, everybody, is Milliman is also working from home. So they're not firing on all cylinders, just like the rest of the country. So,
okay.
I think that may be some of the reason why we had a delay.
But again, as we agreed to at the beginning, once it's made available to us, we'll forward it to you for review.
Very good. Thank you. All right. If nobody has any other questions for the chief and the commissioners today, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. Mike, thank you for taking time out of your vacation to join us today. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate the chiefs coming forward and their commissioners to represent the districts, as well as all the great work that was done together collectively to pull this information together. So, this is a lot of work and a lot of progress, and I know sometimes it's a tough message to swallow, but it's a necessary exercise, as we can all say. So, thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kim.
Next item on the agenda is discussion on the Allentown Fire Chief appointment, and Mayor, you had asked for this to be put on the agenda for consideration.
You've been muted.
Okay.
To unmute yourself, press star.
Can you hear me?
You are no longer muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Barely.
Oh, okay. Let me put it closer. How about now?
Very good, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yes, I did. We have put off hiring a chief for quite some time now. So we have one person who is the acting chief, the deputy chief, and the fire marshal. We finally have gotten Allentown to, out of a deficit, and there is money allocated in the budget. So originally, the plan always was for Allentown that they would have a chief and then a deputy chief that also did the fire marshal work. That's what we had a few years back, and then we had a chief for a little while, but then he left. So what we're trying to do is restore that type of leadership stability to the department, because I will tell you, I am concerned that if something were to happen, whether, the acting chief, had to go someplace, fell ill or whatever, it would leave us with really no chief, no deputy chief, and no fire marshal. So as I said, with the budget being passed, the council did pass the budget, and they were in agreement, with the chief being there. Also, I had, just texting back and forth, the chair of the fire commissioners for Allentown, Iris Diaz, couldn't be on the call today, but I know she strongly supported the chief's position. What they had done so far was they did put out, an ad for a chief. They have some interest. And their concern is now, we don't want to go through all of this, get a contract ready, and then, the members of the MARB board say no, that they don't want a chief there, or there's something else we should have done, or, so we want to know what the MARB has to say about this, what the members, at the subcommittee level have to say about this, because I would like to go forward with it, and I know the commissioners would like to go forward with it along with the chair of the commission. But as I said, we want to work, in cooperation with the MARB members. So that's why, and I thank everybody for putting it on the agenda. I appreciate it.
Certainly. So I will ask the board members first. Your thoughts.
Press this.
This is Bob White. Is there any option is there an alternative to having these three positions, which I think are replicated with the other two districts as well? I do know that Michael, I guess, is off the call, had said that he didn't think that there would be savings from consolidation, but obviously the safety of the people is primary. But I'm just wondering if alternatives were considered, and if so, what they were.
Yeah, Member White, Attorney Lee Tiernan. The way we plan to handle what I think you're hinting at is, first is a commitment to continue to try to save money and resources concerning the fire departments. And we're in active discussions on different aspects of that. We currently have a study for a firehouse that might utilize some benefits. This step would not preclude that continual discussion. And we do believe there's a way to advance that discussion, and we think we can accommodate that with the contract of the chief. The contract of the chief doesn't have to be a long-term contract initially, so that it can continue to give us options in terms of cost savings going forward. However, we have been playing the string out probably a little too long here. With respect, I mean, if a corp counsel gets hurt or is incapacitated, you just hire a private lawyer. There aren't private fire chiefs, so it is a little scary for us to have gone this long, and just depending on one person, especially during a COVID crisis where he could be incapacitated just because his temperature's up or just because he has to quarantine for some reason. So we do feel, unfortunately, we're in a position where we have to do this. But again, I think we can control and keep what the interest of the MARB board is and what the interest of the city is, which is continuing to look for efficiencies and cost savings. I think we can control that with the length and breadth of the chief's contract when a candidate's selected.
And one other thing that I wanted to just add, there are only two positions. The one position always had the two sets of duties, because I checked with the previous chief, and that's the way it was set up. So, again, the structure would be going back to what that was. So one position would solely be a chief. The second position would be a deputy chief / fire marshal, which was already inclusive, and that's the way that they had that going for several years prior. So it's still it's two positions now instead of one position doing like all the jobs.
Thank you, Mayor, for the clarification. I would be uncomfortable interfering with the decisions of the officials on the ground on a matter of safety. I do think, though, in moving it forward, I appreciate Attorney Tiernan's suggestion. I would like to see at some point in the not too distant future some kind of overall plan for the fire districts, whether that comes through the tri-district with, individual buy-ins by the three districts to try to lower the demand on the taxpayers. Whether that is with actives, with retirees, what could be done so that we can deal with this as a whole rather than piecemeal. I certainly understand the challenges, and everyone's inherited something from the past. I get it, but I would like to see some kind of coordinated plan from the three districts working together that would reduce the demand on the taxpayers over the near term. I totally agree this isn't going to be fixed overnight, but I think we need to get that under in hand, because I think it is a key factor in the long-term stability of West Haven once they leave
is there an opportunity to look at it differently? Is there an opportunity, whether you need a short-term fix for something to look forward in the long term? If you look at the number of employees that Allentown has as firefighters, to be in the budget is 23, and West Shore has 36. And under the first district is 51. It's just a measure. I don't know place, I don't know time. So I'm a finance gal. I'm not a firefighter. And so I don't deal with your challenges every day of safety. And so I'm not discounting that. I don't want to also discount the players that are doing the work right now. So this is by no means any slight on the existing chief or acting chief, by no means. So, but when you look at those numbers, is it feasible? Is it something that could be done and looked at into the future, where there could be a combination between a West Shore and an Allentown, and I know that Allentown is rolled into the city, which then makes it even more complex than being, well, for me, from the city side, it's not as complex, but from when you're dealing with a separate district. Should we look at a merge or consider something different with the West Shore as chiefs retire in the upcoming, or when you fill a position in the future? So really thinking about things strategic in the long term, instead of it will always be three separate districts. That's what I would put on it. Can we change the ingredients, and the way it's built? Is that even being part of the discussion when the tri-districts are being pulled together? Something for consideration. And Mayor, when you mentioned that you have a vacancy, I'm certainly hoping that this tri-district, and I think they come to, when I had the meetings with them, that they said that each other will back each up when they need to in times of emergency, that would already happen should you happen to have an emergency,
I understand what you're saying as far as, backing each other up and everything, but we would be, like, if there was an emergency, we would be missing both tops. So in other words, the chief, the deputy chief / fire marshal. So it's not like the rest of them, like, in other words, if the chief is out, another chief could step in. We would have no upper level. I mean, I'm not a firefighter either, and I'm not in the fire department,
right.
But that seems like we're leading one section out very vulnerable, along with the fact that I understand about all the, the good work that has happened, and I do think it is great. However, everything is going to take some time, and that's why I think Attorney Tiernan said it best. We're not looking to sign like somebody on for 3 to 5 years. We're looking for a shorter contract with maybe an option and to see how things go. But right now, the way that it sits, the way that the charter is written and the piece about Allentown is that no other fire district can pay, the residents from the other fire district can't pay for Allentown and vice versa. So until that all gets sorted out, that's why I thought that at this point in time, we've gone without a chief for a very, very long period of time. Basically, other than for a few months, the whole time that I've been here, and I think even a little bit before that.
Understand. Any other
Hi,
comments?
Jim. Hi, Jim. This is Chief Scafarello. If I could just add a few comments from what the mayor's talking about. So, the first thing about the chief position and how we operate, you basically can call us anything you want, but in the fire service, we need a reasonable span of control. And set forth throughout the industry, optimal is 5 to 1. So 1 supervisor for 5 subordinates. So if you look in some of the bigger towns, or maybe even East Hartford or Manchester that we've been using, what we do is we step down. So it's chief, deputy chief, and then you would have battalion chiefs. So I know Hamden has a battalion chief on each shift. A captain, a lieutenant is a company officer. So our reasonable span of control is maintained throughout the ranks. So, a lot of people say that the city of West Haven has 3 chiefs. But overall, our chief ranks is very small. So if you took a town similar that I'm familiar with, I'm sorry guys, I'm not familiar with East Hartford or Manchester since they're far away, but I do work closely with Hamden as they're similar to what we do. And they have a battalion chief on each shift. They have a deputy chief, and they have a chief. So that's kind of how it works. Because we're small, we're not able to step it down by chief, deputy chief, and battalion chiefs. So we do it a little different. So you can call us whatever you'd like in the city of West Haven, but in reality, it's the span of control that we're really working on. So the next thing I just wanted to talk to you about was some of the operational stuff that you were discussing. So operationally, the city of West Haven, we fight fires, we provide EMS as one department. We're an all. Thanks, Chief. We're an all hazard department, and you say Allentown has 5 firefighters on shift, and you say that the center district has 12, but really, when the alarm rings for whatever it is, we're responding. So let's just take a first alarm response in the city of West Haven. Report of a structure fire. So we send 3 engines, what we call a truck, and a rescue. We put 15 firefighters on the fire ground for every single fire in the city of West Haven. And to do that, we work together operationally. So yesterday, we had a significant call, a 4-month-old baby, not breathing. And the Center District and the West Shore District work together to provide EMS care to that child. So there's no district lines, I guess you could say. Maybe that will help you see what's going on here. There are no district lines operationally. And during that 4-month-old rescue, we also had a kitchen fire come in. And, again, no district lines. Everybody responded to accomplished 3 engines, a truck, and a rescue, and 15 firefighters on scene, also with a baby resuscitation going on. So they're you know, when you talk about operations, you know, you have to see the whole picture there. And so for Allentown, and I think this is where the mayor's going, you know, they need leadership from the span of control standpoint. And I know Mike Esposito, he's the acting chief over there. That guy works 12 hours a day. Allentown's going through significant growth on their grand list, and Mike trying to keep up with plan review and state mandated inspections. It doesn't leave much, you know, for the acting chief part of moving the department forward and, you know, building a new firehouse. He has so much on his plate. So those are some of the things I'd like you to keep in mind when you talk about operations. The operations portion of the West Haven Fire Service is completely integrated. And, you know, on a personal note, I think the firefighters do a hell of a job responding to approximately 12,000 calls a year. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments?
Where's the agenda?
Audit findings.
Okay, so no other comments on the Allentown Fire Chief appointment?
No.
Okay. So, Mayor, you know, this is a discussion item only. That is a local decision. As Robert White has, you know, brought to everybody's attention, you know, that's a management decision. And it's definitely, you know, appreciate that you want to have the discussion here at the MARB. And, but at the end of the day, it is a local decision.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mayor. So let's move on to the next agenda item, which is number 6, and that is the corrective action plan for FY 2019 audit findings. And Frank, I'm going to throw the ball at you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you should have received in your packet an updated matrix of the audit findings from the FY19 audit. Changes from the last time, updates on items number 7 and 8. Those are around the pension plans and the alternative investments. And Corp Counsel is starting to put together an RFP for that. We will go out with the intention to consolidate investment management around the PD pension, the fire department pension, the OPEB trust, and if possible, the 401k plan. And
the fire districts in the library, if they're amenable.
As Attorney Tieran has reminded me, we would also like to include the other fire districts and the library in that if they're amenable to it. So that's moving on. We have an update on item number 9, which was the account reconciliations that were not being done at year end. The new junior analyst has taken that role on. She has been doing the trial balance analyses for the year-end audit. She's gone through, quite frankly, completed more accounts than I thought she would, given the time frame. So she's well on her way to getting that completed. That will become part of the normal monthly close process as part of her duties for the end of the month. She will continue to monitor and reconcile those withholding accounts, again, on a monthly ongoing process. Item number 11 was the Allentown Fire Department and their capital assets. They are preparing a complete physical inventory, as I've been told anyway, that they're doing a physical inventory on their assets for the fiscal 20 audit. I have not seen that come back yet. We have requested that to come in by the end of the month. So I will be reviewing that along with the assistant finance director to make sure that assets have been deleted as they have been retired, as well as any new activity has been brought on. There is one open item still for the Board of Education, and I don't know if Matt is on the call, but it looks like there.
Yes,
oh, are you there, Matt? Can you talk to that item 14?
Yeah, item 14 with the student activity funds. Right now, we're looking to get this automated through a QuickBooks system instead of a paper ledger. It has been delayed with the current climate with COVID and the undertaking of opening up the schools. And the second part of that item, getting the records into our general ledger, we're working on getting the funds created so I can make the entries to get them in Munis.
Great, thanks, Matt. There are a couple of open items that are still coded yellow. You can see the bidding documentation around the purchasing department. We do have a new purchasing person who will hopefully be starting once the ADP project is up and running. He is currently doing the payroll, so he will be moving into that purchasing role. We have a situation in West Haven where, we had employees that were there doing the administrative work that are no longer in those positions, whether they left or in one case passed away, and those positions were never filled. So the administrative duties are neglected in some cases. I'm hoping that once the individual is on board, full-time doing this, we'll be able to put a process together where all of this documentation can be reviewed on a monthly basis, at minimum quarterly basis. The department heads have been notified at the mayor's department head meeting. I did remind them that if they go to the state vendor list, they still need to document that with the purchasing department, as well as any emergency purchases need to be documented. And I will follow up with the sewer department. They are the biggest abuser of that. Other than that, that is where we stand, Kim, on the action items.
Okay, thank you, Frank. And in order for your purchasing person to move over to purchasing from payroll, do you have to fill a payroll position?
No, there is a position open in personnel that we're looking to fill. That is a combined payroll and HR benefits coordinator. The job description has been written. I have a meeting scheduled with Beth and hopefully Lee on Wednesday. We'll go through that to make sure that there are no duties in there that may cross unions and cause us an issue. And once that's completed, we'll get that position filled.
But let me just add something, Ms. Dennis and Attorney Lee Turner. We have noticed that in the short run, and as I think we discussed all along with ADP, in the short run, there's a data transfer, data entry, and data accuracy compliance so that ADP can do their job properly. And that requires more work, not less. So it is going to take us a little while till we see the benefit of reduced workloads. So when you say, filling positions or not filling positions, our objective is to get ADP all the accurate information, and then once their system is loaded, I think you're going to see that we're able to look to other positions and either reconfigure them so we get more bang for our buck, or if there's attrition, maybe we can take advantage of that.
The other thing to remember too is that the West Haven payroll process was woefully outdated. Departments were literally sending paper to the payroll department, who would then have to key punch it in and then send it back for review. So the goal with ADP is to put the onus back on the departments using electronic data collection, so that there won't be a bottleneck per se. That the payroll person that's currently in that position, there won't be a bottleneck there. So as opposed to a full-time position, I would estimate that the payroll responsibility shouldn't take any more than a day if everything is up and running correctly.
I understand. And that makes sense. Nothing should be paper at this time in day and age that we're in. And, you know, I've seen in my history where in the payroll department, it has created labor relations issues with paper timesheets. So I would highly encourage that we get everything automated and that the individual will have control over their own time, not relying on somebody else if they entered their time accurately or not.
That is my vision. My goal would be to have everyone in the city punch the time clock, including the police and fire departments. We are moving towards at least getting the fire department.
This Attorney Lieutenant, again, what Frank is illuminating, I want to emphasize that we are going to do this gently, but we are going to accomplish the goal. But yes, I have confirmed that other, for example, fire departments as large as the Chicago Fire Department do punch, and so we are going to try to implement that, as I say, gently, but achieving the goal. And the police department is a little bit of a work in progress, whether a shift chief enters the time of the person or whether individual officers do. There's a chain of command there. We're still working that out. But there will be a change. There will be a change that will make it more efficient. And again, what's going to force the change mostly is that we have to adhere to ADP's four corners so that we can achieve the accuracy and the delivery of ADP's product that we want. So it'll happen, but I don't want to frighten people who are viewing this on the other side. We will approach this gently, but achieve the goal.
No, I understand. I've been through this myself numerous times with collective bargaining units, and there is a benefit for them to have control of their own time. And, I think that so again, I wish you luck in doing all of this, and want to remove the audit findings because there's a reason why you have audit findings in that area.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. I think that we might have skipped over one item. No, you talked about bid. Hold on one second. There was one I thought you might have skipped. What about the Allentown personnel files, number 10?
That will be
Did you comment on that? I didn't think I heard that.
I did not comment on that. That should be taken care of once we move to ADP. Okay. So the hard copy files will still remain at the firehouse and the police with the police station. However, the ADP system will have all the required personnel information. The only thing they will not have is any disciplinary documents or items of that such.
I understand.
So that should all be taken care of once ADP is up and running, which is a perfect segue into the next bullet.
Actually, there's one before we hit that one. I would like an update on your fiscal 2020 close and the audit process with your new auditors.
Well, I thought I was going to get away from that, but no. The close process is going well. We had a discussion. Bob Ziskowski, the assistant finance director, and myself spoke to the auditors last week. They are also proposing is it a monthly call?
Yeah, I spoke to the partner in charge, Leslie Zoll, And what she wants to do is an open item for, so in other words, once a week, we're going to have an open item meeting, which I will be attending, or my designee and Frank will be attending, so that we can keep on top of it. They are coming in on site the week of October the 19th, and they're bringing a team of 3 to 5, depending on what day it is and how much work they have in front of them. So we are very much want this audit done on time. And so any, push that myself or Frank has to give, whoever isn't getting their stuff done, we will push, because I want this done on time.
All right, very good, thank you. Glad to hear that, that I like the idea of the open items call.
Yeah, we kind of went that route last year when we asked the auditors for the grid of the information that was needed, so we were able to stay on top of it. But it's good that the mayor will be involved, because now she's got the juice, and they'll listen to her before they listen to me.
I don't know about that.
There you go. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next agenda item, number 8, and that is an update on the HR Corrective Action Plan, but today we're really going to focus in on the ADP project.
Yeah, so we have weekly calls with ADP. In some cases, it's actually 2 or 3 times a week, focusing on different areas. So on Monday, that's usually when we'll talk about the overall project itself. ADP has generated the matrix that was provided to you. This is something that they do with their clients, the project plan. It ties into the timeline that they provided with us. You could see there that there is one item that is behind schedule, but everything else is either in progress or complete. They are not indicating to me that there is any significant issue that would delay or prevent this project from going live when we expect, which is hopefully the end of December. We are gearing up towards doing data transfers and being able to do dual system maintenance and get that process in place. So as West Haven has employees hired or retired or leaving, the systems will be in place to make sure that the ADP system is in sync with West Haven. As I said, the project has been going well. We have designated a single point person with ADP as far as the project goes, so that if West Haven has any questions, we focus all those questions through that individual. She then contacts ADP. Vice versa, if ADP has requests for various information, they funnel it through that individual. It just makes it a lot cleaner, so that 5 people from ADP aren't calling and asking for the same thing from 6 different people here in the city, and vice versa. So we
Is
see
that Aaron that you're referring to?
That's Aaron, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I have one question, and that is your HR item number 10, and that one looks like it's behind schedule with a due date of 8/7, and it's in pink, so that looks like it's the only item that could be burning hot. What are your comments to that?
Matt, that's the benefit information, the plans.
Yes, our Seth from Lockton is working directly with Daniel from ADP, so I believe they have talked last week, but I will follow up and make sure that Seth and ADP get together.
Okay, so one of the things you need to find out when you're in a project such as this, because this has happened to me in the past, is that when a project doesn't get their information in a timely manner, there can be a possibility of an overrun, because it can delay the project. So we need to make sure if it is delayed, that it doesn't have an impact on the overall project, which then causes the cost to go up.
I will have an update by the end of the day.
Nope, I just wanted, just so you know.
No, I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And any comments about the ADP project log from the members? Okay, then that's our last agenda item. Shall I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Bob White.
Motion to adjourn.
Your second, Stephen?
Yes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm not going to do a roll call. I'm going to assume that everybody's in favor, and this meeting is adjourned.
Bye-bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone, for your time.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
You just gained back 25 minutes.
I appreciate that, Kim, thanks.
We do.
You're still running a deficit, though.
Excuse me?
Can sign lease.
What was that?
You're still running a deficit.
I am?
Time deficit.
That's great. Perfect.
I'll
know
get
what?
Marcin to turn off the.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely. That's right, Marcia knows how to do that. So we can sign stuff.
We can. We can probably
Wait until
sign
he
stuff
shuts.
on tape as long as we don't discuss it.
No, wait, he's gonna shut it off. So let's wait. This is video given out.